Let's continue with the chapter on the impermanence of life, which consists of 7 meditations. Today, we'll cover the 6th one. Each meditation on impermanence is crucial. If you regularly engage with the contents of the words of my perfect teacher, put it into practice at all times, and consistently experience a sense of impermanence, then your practice will surely succeed. We must fully integrate the Dharma we've learned into our minds, rather than simply adhering to its verbal meaning. While it is valuable to be extensively learned, if your mind is not tamed and peaceful, mastering thousands of sutras and shastras or memorizing all the Sutrayana and Vajrayana teachings will not offer you significant benefit. When you face birth, aging, sickness, and death, and when you are about to leave this world alone without having put the teachings into practice, you may easily deviate from or even act contrary to the Dharma. Therefore, we practitioners should frequently reflect on these supreme Vajra words passed down from the great masters. The uncertainty of the circumstances of death. We, the people of Jambudvipa, from the moment of birth, are destined to move toward death. However, the manner of death, the causes and conditions, and the exact time of death cannot be determined. No one can be certain when, where, or in what way they will die. In the next 100 years, most of us will likely be gone, and none of us will remain in this world. However, how we will die cannot be predicted. Some may pass away in a hospital, others on the road. Some may drown in a river, some may take their own lives, and some may perish in natural or man-made disasters, and so on. How are you going to die? Probably no one can truly say. Furthermore, where we will die cannot be predicted. Many Dharma practitioners at Larangar strongly wish to die here, but this is what one says when in good health. Once you fall ill, given the poor medical conditions at Larangar, you would likely prefer to leave quickly to seek medical attention elsewhere. As a result, you may die in a different place rather than at Larangar. When we will die is also unpredictable. If the time could be known, we would understand how many years we have left before our death, allowing us to arrange the rest of our lives accordingly. For example, we could plan how many meditation sessions we would conduct and how many mantras we would recite each day, but no one knows the exact moment of death. So, what is the one certainty we can rely on? It is the fact that our time in this life is constantly diminishing and never increasing. As Shantideva says, "Never halting night or day, my life drains constantly away, and from no other source does increase come. How can there not be death for such as me?" The Bardo teachings and other practical guides use the following analogy about our lives. A man slips over a cliff and is falling to his doom when he grasps a clump of grass that halts his descent. He hangs there, and below him is a deep abyss with a beast opening its mouth ferociously. Soon, a white mouse and a black mouse appear and start nibbling on the blades of grass alternately, gradually leaving less grass in the man's hand. Meanwhile, honey drips from a bee's nest above him, and 5 drops fall directly into the man's mouth. Wow, how sweet it tastes! He savors the honey so much that he completely forgets the dangerous situation he is in. Our lives are as fragile as the clump of grass the man clings to. The white mouse represents day, and the black mouse represents night, symbolizing the inexorable passage of time by which our lives gradually diminish. The lower realm into which we fall after death is akin to the beast, opening its mouth ferociously. Our lives approach their end, and the prospect of our next life is worrisome. However, people remain obsessed with the 5 worldly desires represented by the honey. How foolish! Therefore, we should contemplate and meditate constantly on death and impermanence. Many people often create grand life blueprints for the future. For example, Some lay practitioners who visit Lorong say, "I am not available now. I have to leave Lorong and go to work for money. 4 or 5 years from now, I will return for my ordination, and then I will devote myself to practice." However, after they return to their hometowns, many things happen. Either they die or major changes suddenly occur, and their wishes are thwarted. Not long ago, when we went on a pilgrimage to Mount Garuda near Lorong, a young Tibetan woman who had just graduated from Qinghai University School of Medicine came to see me. She had watched my teaching videos, including The Way of the Bodhisattva, and had developed great faith in the Dharma. She truly recognized the rarity of human life and no longer wanted to waste her life on worldly pursuits, so she insisted on taking ordination at Lorong. Her mother also came to see me, expressing her support for her daughter's decision. Moved by their sincerity, I didn't reject the young Tibetan woman's request. With my permission, they were very happy and returned home to raise money to buy a cabin at Lorong. 2 days ago, her mother called me, crying. It turned out that her daughter had wanted to become a Buddhist nun as soon as possible, but a recent medical checkup revealed she had terminal cancer. Now she couldn't go to Lorong anymore. The young Tibetan woman also called me, expressing her gratitude for having studied the Dharma before her death, which made her less afraid of dying. She said she had always wanted to become a nun at Lorong, but it hadn't worked out in this life. She vowed to take ordination under my guidance in her next life. She also mentioned another wish. She had noticed that some senior nuns at Lorong wore ragged shoes, which I also mentioned in my book Footprints on the Journey. She said that if anyone were to donate money for her medical treatment, she would arrange for the funds to be sent to me after her passing. This way, I could pass it on to senior nuns or use it to help others in need. She said she would dedicate the merit to all beings. I felt sad upon hearing her news. She was only 26 years old, and impermanence came to her far too soon. She could not disregard everything and come to Lorong, as it was a long journey for her, and her father would not agree. Her father is a renowned doctor and had asked her to undergo chemotherapy as soon as possible. Although there is no cure for her cancer, he still wanted to give it a try. In fact, impermanence occurs so frequently around us, yet many people do not take it seriously, believing it only happens to others and will never happen to themselves. In particular, those who have never studied Buddhism, as well as those who have studied it but have not delved deeply, tend to lack an understanding of impermanence. Thus, I hope that through this teaching, we can all contemplate the principle of impermanence, examining how the mountains, rivers, and 4 seasons are constantly changing, how our innate faith, compassion, greed, and anger are in constant flux, and how our most cherished body and life lack any permanence or stability. We must carefully reflect on these issues. As past eminent masters have said, we should place our hands on our chests, close our eyes, concentrate our minds, and ask ourselves, how much longer can I live in this world? Sadly, millions upon millions of people have never contemplated impermanence. They only care about immediate benefits and blindly pursue pleasures in this life. What do they ultimately gain or lose? Many should ponder this. In this world, the causes for life are pitifully scarce, while the causes for death are as numerous as the hairs on an ox. As the great master Aryadeva said, causes of death are extremely many, causes of life are exceedingly rare, and even they may turn into causes of death. As it is stated in Nagarjuna's precious garland, the causes of death are many, those of staying alive are few. These too can become causes of death. Therefore, always perform the practices. There are countless causes of death, such as fire, water, poisons, dangerous places, savages, and fierce beasts, while the causes for life are extremely scarce. Every day, you can find news about disasters occurring all over the world, making human life constantly face threats. In addition to natural disasters, the imbalance of the four elements within us is also a significant factor that cannot be overlooked. Buddhist scriptures mention 404 types of human diseases, 80,000 negative forces, and more, indicating that while causes of death are numerous, causes of life are few. What we consider as causes of life, such as clothing and food, can also become causes of death. In particular, many people today are unaware of the law of karma, leading them to pursue money through unethical means, such as manufacturing large quantities of weapons and producing counterfeit, unsafe, and substandard goods that pose direct and indirect threats to people's lives. For instance, dietary supplements and fitness nutrition products intended to enhance health may contain toxic substances. Products made from genuine leather or real fur are often regarded as status symbols, but it is important to note that their production releases aromatic amines, chemicals harmful to human health that can cause skin issues or even cancer. Consuming contaminated food, or even eating what is believed to be non-toxic with the hope of nourishing the body, may still result in poisoning or adverse reactions under certain circumstances. It might also be the wrong food for a particular individual. Many people consume expensive foods and supplements in the hope of improving their health. However, what they eat may be harmful rather than beneficial, leading to a variety of diseases. Some foods are healthy on their own, but can become toxic or indigestible when combined with certain other foods. In fact, eating certain combinations can even be fatal, yet many people remain unaware of this risk. Additionally, some foods can produce unexpected toxins if they are not properly cooked or stored. For example, undercooked red kidney beans and green potatoes can be quite toxic. Especially in our time, most people, due to their excessive craving for meat and unrestrained consumption of flesh and blood, seem almost certain to contract diseases caused by old meat or harmful meat spirits. Moreover, countless individuals suffer from improper diets, leading to tumors, disorders of phlegm, dropsy, and other diseases, resulting in innumerable deaths. Eating meat, in particular, can sometimes lead to severe health issues. In 2004, more than 1 million residents of Foshan in the Guangdong province of China were infected with Clonorchis sinensis, a liver fluke that causes jaundice, indigestion, inflammation of the bile ducts, and serious liver problems. This outbreak was linked to the local habit of consuming raw fish. While enjoying this delicacy, they were unaware they were actually ingesting the host of liver flukes. Tibetans also historically consumed raw lamb and beef, which harbored numerous bacteria, viruses, and parasites. Eating such meat can result in significant health problems. Additionally, some people in southern China enjoy eating monkey brains. However, medical experts have discovered that monkeys may carry a highly lethal virus, simian leukemia, that can easily infect humans through a monkey's saliva, to say nothing of its brain. Today, many people are enthusiastic meat eaters. They consume meat and blood without scruples and show little regard for the law of karma. Before Patrul Rinpoche was born, Tibetans were influenced by the traditions of Bon, the indigenous religion of Tibet, and relentlessly consumed meat and blood. Consequently, many Tibetans at that time suffered from diseases related to meat consumption, including arterial plaque and high blood pressure. Chinese, especially those living by the sea, often eat raw seafood such as shrimp and crab, which can lead to infections from lung fluke, liver fluke, bacillary dysentery, and intestinal inflammation. hepatitis, and more. For instance, 2 outbreaks of hepatitis A occurred in Shanghai in 1983 and 1988. The former involved 20,000 individuals, while the latter affected 310,000. Investigations revealed that these outbreaks were caused by the consumption of raw blood clams. Today's diners are not only interested in seafood, but also in wild animals that are on the National Protected List. However, consuming wild animals is not always safe. For example, a lizard may carry nearly 700 parasites, which can be extremely dangerous if ingested. Nevertheless, there are no such concerns if you avoid meat, so we should strongly promote a vegetarian diet. If you understand the law of karma and have read the Shurangama Sutra or the Mahayana Mahaparinirvana Sutra, you will recognize the benefits of a vegetarian lifestyle. Even if you don't subscribe to Buddhist beliefs, there are still significant health advantages to becoming a vegetarian. Recently, I read a book compiled by the editorial board of the Elderly of China, in which a journalist asked Master Ben Huan, a renowned Chinese monk, "Most Buddhists don't eat meat, which in my view doesn't make sense. Our human bodies need nourishment." Master Ben Huan replied, "Look at me. I am 102 years old. Do I look like I'm lacking any nourishment?" Indeed, a vegetarian diet is a cause of longevity. Tomotari Mitsuoka, a professor at Tokyo University, found that inhabitants of rural areas with a median age of 84 tend to live longer than those in urban areas like Tokyo with a median age of 68, possibly due to a higher intake of dietary fiber in rural regions. Urban dwellers in Tokyo may have more affluence, allowing for greater meat consumption, while rural residents often adhere to a more vegetarian diet, which is high in fiber, due to financial constraints. Why does meat consumption harm one's health? The carnivorous diet can damage the body's immune system. Individuals who eat meat excessively may develop acidosis, a condition that increases acidity in the blood and other body tissues, potentially leading to irreversible cell damage and weakening white blood cells' ability to fight infections. Furthermore, meat consumption can result in the accumulation of various residues in the large intestine, promoting the growth of gut bacteria that release harmful toxins, which can be cancerous and detrimental to health. Consequently, Professor Mitsuoka and his colleagues concluded that eliminating meat from one's diet and adopting a vegetarian lifestyle can lead to a longer and healthier life. Thus, humans are not well suited to consume meat, as it can lead to various diseases that shorten our lifespans. This may also explain why centenarian monks outnumber centenarian non-Buddhists in China. Therefore, those who wish to live a long life may want to adopt a vegetarian diet. If it is challenging for you to fully commit to vegetarianism, you might consider reducing meat consumption. For instance, you could refrain from eating meat on special Buddhist days each month, gradually cultivating the habit of enjoying vegetarian meals. Our lives are already relatively short, and they may become even shorter if we don't eat properly. Nowadays, many diseases and deaths are caused by improper diets. Similarly, in the pursuit of wealth and fame, people meet their demise, whether by marching onto the battlefield, encountering ferocious beasts, or recklessly crossing rivers. Such occurrences are too numerous to count. Throughout our lives, we are constantly surrounded by causes of death that are difficult to avoid. Therefore, we should always reflect on death and impermanence, whether we are driving or walking. For example, when driving on a highway, we should keep in mind the teaching of impermanence, as in any second, we could be involved in a car accident and no longer be in this world. Similarly, while walking, we might slip and fall into a river, and it could take just a few minutes for the rushing water to sweep us away. Some young people think, I won't die anytime soon because I am still young and have many things yet to accomplish. However, these are not valid reasons. It is entirely impossible for anyone to be exempt from death simply because of their youth. According to Buddhist logic, this reasoning is a fallacy. A diligent practitioner always remembers the uncertainty of death's arrival, often contemplating, "I wonder when I will die." With this thought in mind, they practice earnestly and do not waste time on trivial conversations and distractions. In contrast, what people in cities lack the most is awareness of impermanence. They continually procrastinate their Dharma practice, postponing it to next year, the year after, or even until retirement. I once met a man in his 50s who told me that in 15 years he would return to Larungar to study the Dharma. What a nice plan for his future. The Dhammapada covers the story of an old man. When the Buddha was in Sravasti, a wealthy but stingy old Brahmin in his late 70s lived there. The old man wanted to build an extravagant mansion, so he spent a lot of time supervising the construction and directing the craftsmen. Through his omniscient wisdom, the Buddha knew the old man had only one day to live. However, the old man was unaware of this, so he continued to occupy himself with meaningless tasks, absorbed in his busyness. Therefore, the Buddha approached the old Brahmin in person. The Buddha asked the old man, "Are you not too tired? What's the use of building such a mansion?" The old Brahmin replied proudly, "In the front of this mansion is the living room, in the back is my bedroom, and on the east and west sides are rooms for my family, children, and servants. There's a veranda where we can cool off in summer and a solarium where we can stay warm in winter. What a comfortable residence." The Buddha said, "Nice, nice, but I have verses for you. Will you pause your work, sit down and listen to me?" The old Brahmin replied, "I am too busy to hear your verses. I will talk to you in a few days. If you have anything important to say, just tell me briefly." The Buddha said, "Your plans for the future are good, and you may consider yourself a wise man. But what you do not realize is that impermanence comes swiftly, and you will soon leave this world. Yet you continue to keep yourself busy with meaningless activities. Nothing is more ignorant than this." Hearing the Buddha's words, the old Brahmin said, "What you have said indeed makes sense, but I am too busy today, so I will talk to you later." The old man was very stubborn, and the Buddha couldn't persuade him to change his mind. Shortly after the Buddha left, the old Brahmin walked beneath a rafter that fell and struck his head, killing him instantly. Many seniors behave like the old Brahmin, as if they will live for hundreds of years. Each day, they focus solely on making plans for their children and grandchildren, which is rather unwise. Therefore, each of us should always consider how long we can continue to live. By doing so, we won't cling excessively to fame, wealth, and relationships, even at the cost of our lives. On one hand, if you practice the concept of impermanence well, you will develop the mental strength to face illness and pain bravely, and you won't be devastated when accidents befall your family and friends. We need to go beyond the superficial and seek the true essence of the Dharma by integrating it into our minds. Buddhists shouldn't focus solely on external appearances and formalities. Instead, we should delve deeply into the teachings. The Dharma not only encompasses the ultimate truth of everything, but also encourages to put the Buddha's teachings into real practice. Thus, practitioners can cultivate their inner experience to varying degrees while practicing the Dharma. This is what makes Buddhism truly remarkable. Furthermore, it is precisely because the causes of death are so varied that the time of death remains uncertain. Some pass away in their mother's womb, some at birth, and others just as they learn to crawl. Some leave this world in the prime of life, while others live to old age and die peacefully. It says in the collection of deliberate sayings, "Some die in their mother's womb, some die at birth, some die while learning to crawl, some die while learning to run, some die old, some die young, some young adults die in their prime." A Chinese proverb states, There is no difference between the old and the young on the path to death. Death takes everyone, old or young, equally. A young man thinks, "My hair hasn't turned gray, so how can I die?" Absolutely impossible. He sounds so certain, perhaps because he has attained the level of Vidyadhara with power over life. Fantastic. Some die before they receive timely treatment or help. Some are in an ambulance but die on the way to the hospital. Others, bedridden for years due to lingering illness, waste away to mere skin and bones and pass away with unfulfilled regrets. I have seen many such patients who linger between life and death. Recently, one person called me and said, "Please grant me blessings so I can die sooner. Living like this, I am a burden to others and a pain to myself." However, if his karma hadn't been exhausted, it was not easy for him to die sooner. Many people die suddenly or by accident before they can finish their meal, complete their sentence, or accomplish their tasks. Some even take their own lives. Of course, at the moment of death, ordinary beings inevitably experience the effects of karma, while sublime beings have attained freedom beyond life and death. As I mentioned recently, the Lama next door passed into parinirvana while reciting mantras in the Vajra posture. Later, many Dharma friends reported that a rainbow appeared in the sky that day. I hesitated to believe it at first, as I typically don't accept others' claims about miraculous signs without question. However, when I later saw the photo, the rainbow was clearly visible, and the date on the photo confirmed its authenticity. So now, I believe that the Lama has achieved realization. There are many such instances in Dujom Rinpoche's The Nyingma school of Tibetan Buddhism. For example, one disciple of Vairotsana placed his shawl and mala on a branch of a cypress tree before ascending directly to the pure realm. The state of realization demonstrated in this case is beyond the imagination and reach of an ordinary person. In summary, there are countless causes of death in this world. Regardless of what we are doing, whether eating, walking, driving, flying on a plane, or even just sitting at home, death can come suddenly. Surrounded by so many causes of death, the forces sustaining life are as feeble as a flickering candle flame in the wind. As stated in Nagarjuna's precious garland, constantly surrounded by causes of death, we are like lamps in a gust. The Kalpana Manditaka, the stage of imagination, states, "Life is like a lamp in the wind, not knowing when it will be extinguished." The Buddha employed other similes to convey the uncertainty of death, such as, "Life lasts between one breath and the next," and "Life is more fragile than a bubble in a stream." Given this, we shouldn't occupy ourselves daily with dressing up, making money, and planning for the future. There is no guarantee that death will not strike unexpectedly at any moment, nor that you will not be reborn as a horned animal tomorrow. You should sincerely accept the uncertainty of the time of death and the circumstances of rebirth. Please contemplate this and earnestly practice it over the long term. Intense awareness of impermanence. Meditate single-mindedly on death, reflecting that every action, whether walking, standing, sitting, or lying down, could be your last in this life. Speak and contemplate it with utter conviction. When traveling, consider the possibility of dying away from home without the chance to return. My practice on this is inadequate. Whenever I leave Larungar for elsewhere, I ponder impermanence, feeling I might not return. However, when I walked from my cabin to the Dharma hall a few minutes ago to give teachings, I felt certain that I would return to my cabin after class. Thus, it seems that when I travel far, I contemplate death, whereas when I leave my cabin briefly, I hardly think about it. In fact, wherever we go, whether to the toilet or to fetch water, we should remind ourselves, "I might die there." We must always maintain a strong awareness of impermanence. When you set out on a journey or rest on the steppes, ask yourself, will I die here? Wherever you are, reflect on whether this might be where you die. At night, before you sleep, consider, I might die here tonight. It's uncertain whether I'll be alive tomorrow. Of course, worldly people may find you strange, thinking this person is in good health, so it is impossible for him to die while sitting on the stairs. How pessimistic it is that he lives in such fear every day and has no significant goals in life. However, their perceptions are misguided. What worldly individuals pursue in life is entirely different from what we practitioners strive to attain: renunciation. Once we develop genuine renunciation through practice, we lose interest in everything except our liberation from samsara. As soon as renunciation arises within a person, they may feel compelled to take ordination and devote themselves to Dharma practice, and no one can dissuade them from this path. Why does this happen? Because they have understood the truth of everything and no longer wish to wait. They have decided to embark on the path to liberation as a monastic. In contrast, if we haven't cultivated genuine renunciation, we will continue to cling to worldly pursuits. Consequently, there is a disconnect between practitioners and worldly individuals. If you have developed a conviction about impermanence, you will undoubtedly become disenchanted with worldly concerns, much like a gallbladder patient who sees greasy food and shows no interest. All you care about is liberation from samsara. Therefore, we should meditate on death and impermanence constantly and in every circumstance. When we go to bed at night, we should think, I might die in bed tonight, and tomorrow I may not wake up. I often reflect on this, especially at night before I lie down. If my mind is clear and free of discursive thoughts, I frequently contemplate this. In fact, reflecting on impermanence should become a habit. If you think about it every night before going to bed, eventually the awareness of impermanence will arise in you naturally. Please don't behave like an animal that simply collapses on the ground and starts snoring when it's time to sleep, only to wake up in a daze when it's time to get up. If you do so, it indicates that you are not fully immersed in Buddha's teachings. When you rise in the morning, ask yourself whether today might be the day you breathe your last, and consider that there is no certainty you will have the chance to sleep again in the evening. Meditate solely on death, earnestly and from the depths of your heart. What I just said may resonate deeply with good practitioners. However, no matter how much more I elaborate on this, it may not impact those who never put the teachings into real practice. Practice like the Kadampa Geshes of old, who would often contemplate before going to sleep at night. We do not know if we will need to light a fire tomorrow morning. Thus, at night they would typically leave the embers uncovered and would turn their bowls upside down, maintaining a steadfast understanding of death in their hearts at all times. We should follow their example and put this into practice in our own lives. In the past, Tibetans had no stoves or gas for cooking. They relied on the 3-stone fire, arranging 3 stones to create a stand for a cooking pot. Before going to bed at night, Tibetans would place several large pieces of yak dung or burning wood in the fire, cover them with ashes, and finally place a large rock on top. In the morning, they would push aside the ashes, find the embers, and easily rekindle the fire. When I was young, Tibetans lived this way, but not anymore. On one hand, it is difficult to make fire with flint, steel, and tinder. On the other hand, the introduction of matches and lighters has made it easier for Tibetans to start a fire. However, in ancient times, every Tibetan household had to cover the embers for the night. Due to their good practice on impermanence, those Kadampa practitioners believed they might die during the night, and that the next day there might be no need to light a fire, so they never covered the embers. These Kadampa practitioners would also turn their bowls upside down. According to Tibetan tradition, Turning someone's bowl over symbolizes that the person has died, so a person would never turn their bowl upside down while still alive. If a child does so, their parents will scold them, believing it to be inauspicious. Thus, from a worldly perspective, the behaviors of those Kadampa practitioners might be difficult to understand, but from a practitioner's perspective, they had attained a genuine state of practice. Although I'm not from the Kadampa lineage, I greatly admire their practice. Every time I travel, I think, will I die during this trip? And arrange my affairs accordingly. Once, when I was about to leave Larangar, I told a Dharma friend, "Please help me arrange my money if necessary. Let me tell you what is for life release." Hearing my words, the Dharma fellow became very frightened, thinking I must know through my clairvoyance that my death was approaching. Therefore, he immediately said, "You won't die, you won't. You'll live long, very long." Audience laughs. In fact, everyone should prepare for their death. This is the Kadampa tradition, which has nothing to do with being auspicious or not. However, someone might think, I'm going somewhere to get something done today. If I worry about whether I will die right at the beginning, will it bring me bad fortune? Actually, there is nothing to worry about. If you consistently contemplate impermanence and death, you will eventually develop a conviction about impermanence, which will motivate you to practice diligently. Of course, we shouldn't just pay lip service to this idea. We need to put it into real practice. Some senior practitioners never allow their minds to wander due to their focus on impermanence. They fill their schedules with Dharma practices, and we should follow their example by practicing impermanence wholeheartedly and diligently. Let's ensure we never slack off or become negligent.